I'm Paul Merkley, and today we're talking about music in Vienna. If you're at all interested in classical music, this is a high point, could be the highest point of your musical itineraries. Why? Well, first of all, the core of the classical and romantic repertories were composed and first performed in Vienna. I'm talking about Haydn, classical composer, Mozart also, and the great romantic composer Beethoven. In addition, there is what's called, or was what's called, a new Viennese school, new musical activity of a very different kind in the 20th century, and the first proponent of that would be Arnold Schoenberg. So you cannot go wrong if you're interested in classical music and you're traveling to Vienna. Let's talk about some of the places you want to catch and some of the things to look out for. First of all, we want to talk about opera. In the time of Mozart, there was a distinction between Italian opera and German language opera. Italian opera was the opera favored in the imperial theater, that is to say, the theater of the emperor. And today that is called the Staatsoper, or the state opera. So back in the day, Mozart's Italian operas were premiered there, and the German language operas were presented mainly in suburban theaters. There were different ones. So you may find yourself, even today in Vienna, going to that great Staatsoper, which is a magnificent building, to hear something in Italian. And then maybe you'll find yourself in another theater to hear German opera. And that's just how it was designed, because Italian opera at first was the official language of state opera. And then German opera had a different role, sometimes for comic operas more than serious operas. So we think of Mozart's wonderful Magic Flute, which is the last opera he composed, as having been performed first in a suburban theater, and it's in German. On the other hand, there were also Italian comedies, like The Marriage of Figaro, and Italian serious operas. The Italian operas found their way to the imperial theater. I want to talk for a little bit about the musical style of these composers to draw some distinctions and get us oriented a bit for the wonderful journey you're thinking of taking. When we look at the classical period buildings, well, first of all, in architecture, they would call them neoclassical. Neoclassical meaning new classical, because they imitate styles that can be seen in the classical period, meaning the ancient Greek period. What are the values of architecture then? Well, symmetry. So when you look at a building in Vienna, one of the big state buildings that was put up, let's say in the 1700s, well, you can see the symmetry very easily. You'll see the main entrance, and then on either side, whatever's on the right side will be on the left side. If there are 4 windows on the right, there will be 4 windows exactly the same on the left. Everything has to be symmetrical. Everything has to be perfectly balanced. And that follows for the music, particularly when we talk about the music of Mozart, because it's put together with blocks that combine and make longer phrases but everything is always symmetrical. Everything is always like a question and an answer. I think just about everybody has heard and probably sung Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Think of how balanced and symmetrical that is with those phrases. First of all, a question, because it's open. If a thing is open-ended, we call that a question in music. When it's closed, that's an answer. Mozart's style is a sequence of open-ended questions and closed answers combined into longer units. That's why I use the comparison of building things with Lego. You get little blocks and you make longer units. Da da dee da 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 dum. That's a question, because you can't end the piece on that note. And the reason for that is something we call tonality. You wouldn't be happy if we stopped there, because it's incomplete. How do we complete it? Da da dee da dum. Right? Question. Da da dee da dum. Answer. Da da dee da dum. Such balance. Right? The same sort of Lego block, one of them open and the answering one closed. Da 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 dee da da dee da 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 da. Open, open. And then we repeat the beginning. Da 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 dee da dum, da da dee da 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 dum. Simple, simple structures, but they have such a tight logic to them. And building it out from there, he made symphonies, big, long pieces, orchestral pieces, keyboard pieces. His 40th Symphony. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, 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 dum. Open. I can't stop there. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum, 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 dum. Closed. Maybe not a full stop, but a closed ending. Da-da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dee-um. Open, da-da-dum, open, da-da-dum, 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 and on we go, on we go. It's not that the building blocks individually are so remarkable. They're like pieces of Lego, but the way they're combined is so fascinating and perfect. And when we love that symmetry and find it so attractive, that's Mozart. Mozart never sends you running out of the hall with your hands over your ears screaming. It's not like that. It's always perfect. It's always done like that. So for this reason, Mozart could compose quickly and with little revision. That's not a bad thing. I'm just saying when we compare the two styles, and a lot is made of that. We have stories of Mozart composing a movement for a symphony while he was riding on a stagecoach. You say, how could anybody do that? Well, think of it as this kind of procedure where if you're perfect with your phrases, then you can link them up and do these great things. Of course, he was more talented than just about any other musician. I had a prof in grad school who said he didn't know how he would compare Mozart and Bach. And that was true. I don't know how you would say one was more gifted than the other. Both geniuses in music. And I had another prof who said, he was a composer. There were three musicians that were so utterly beyond anything he could think of. And it was Bach, Mozart, and Schoenberg, the modern Viennese composer, the one from the 20th century. Opera's fantastic. Mozart's particular gift, and I've given you something in the playlist to think about that, is giving each character in the opera a musical signature, a musical profile. And in ensembles, when there are 3, 4, 5 characters singing together, making it all gel together and be agreeable, while at the same time enabling every character to conserve his or her musical profile. So when the 3 men sing trios in Don Giovanni, there's no doubt that Leporello is the servant. I played Leporello. Is that typecasting or what? Poor Leporello only has usually about 2 notes at the same time. Da da dum da dum brum da 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 dum brum. Why? Because he's a simple character, a comical character. Don Giovanni, elaborate lines. He's from another social world, and so he has to be from another musical world. Da-da-dum, da-dum, 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 da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. That's not Leporello, that's Don Giovanni. The commendatore, very stern, defending his daughter. Ta-da-ta-dum, ta-da-da-da-dum, ta-da-dee-da, ta-da-da-dee-dum. A trio of 3 baritone voices singing, each one with his own musical identity, not at all the same, but fit together into a very exciting trio. Don Giovanni, called a dramma giocoso, a humorous drama. So a mixed medium. Mozart. And the keyboard pieces, and the string quartets, and the symphonies. All wonderful, all perfect, all symmetrical. And then Beethoven. Beethoven, such a different kind of composer from Mozart. Not at all the same. You know, Mozart has no sketches. He has autographs. When you look at Mozart autographs, you say, oh, good God, there's no revision on here. There's no correction, or just 1 or 2 little tiny things. That's Mozart. Why? Because of the way he composed and his particular talents. Beethoven has sketchbooks. They look like, war was fought over them, crossed out, different sizes of notes, different slopes, shows that he went back to a thing and back to a thing and tried to compose it. But Beethoven's music is done in a different way. It's done by motif and development of the motif. What is a motif? A very short fragment of music that represents something and that can be manipulated and developed and maybe combined with other things. That's the style of writing that turned into film music, right? I think we all are familiar with the motif of the shark in the movie Jaws, right? The 2 notes, da-dum, da-dum. The way the motif itself is shaped suggests the menacing aspect of the shark. And it's in a low range, so we know it's a big animal. And we know it's menacing. It's because of that interval. And we know it has stealth. And we feel the syncopation. So when we get to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, first movement, a four-note motif, da-da-da-dum, same, down, little leap down. And what do we follow it by? Well, the same motif at a slightly different level. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. Then what do we do? Well, the motif again. Da-da-da-dum, again. Da-da-da-dum, 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 turning it upside down. Da-da-da-dum, 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 dum. Da. Now you say, well, we're through with that. We're through with that. We'll have something else. No, we won't. Da 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 dum. Da 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 da. And on we go. Motivic composition. Composition with motif. Turning it, twisting it, varying it in different ways to develop it. Well, that's work for a sketchbook, because you can and will keep changing your mind. You picked the motif, but how are you going to develop it? How are you going to manipulate it? So Beethoven's sketchbooks are filled with crossing out, crazy revisions. He left space when he wrote the original things in to go inside the bar and change everything, because he knew himself, he knew he was going to. And you look at it and you say, oh, here he was sitting at the piano, the notes go straight up and down. Here he was working on a little side desk and they're on a slant. Here he went crazy because he crossed all this out and started again. Oh, he couldn't stand it. And of course we talk about the psychology of Beethoven. He had a different life. It was a different mindset. He was interested in politics. He had a horrible childhood. He had the social struggle with deafness. Even though he could hear all of his music inside his mind, which composers do, some of them perfectly and in all detail, some of them struggle a bit, but in his imagination, while stone deaf, he could hear everything he was writing and planning. Nevertheless, there's the difficulty that you have to interact with people who may not understand that, probably don't, probably have no idea. And so if they have no idea, is someone going to hire you and pay for your symphony to be performed if they know you're deaf? That's going to be a tricky question. And can he take the risk? Because once somebody knows in the city, and the whole city will know. Most people can't even imagine that. I remember when my father came across me and I was lying on a sofa just reading a musical score. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm reading this score." He said, "Yeah, but what does that do for you?" Well, I said, I'm hearing it and deciding how I want to play it and becoming familiar with it. He said, "How can you hear without physical sound?" I said, "Well, it's an imaginative exercise, but yes, I hear it all in detail." He said, "I don't see how that's possible." Well, it's my own father. Imagine if I were Beethoven and people thought that of me, and I said, "Well, I have a symphony I want to put on, and would you pay $100,000 for the production?" Well, it gets hard. So He put on a very abrasive, difficult personality to cut all those conversations short. So tell me about the symphony you're thinking about it. Why should I tell you anything? Why should I talk to you? You people are all the same. You understand nothing. Do you want to pay for the production or not? Shorter conversation. So what does the potential patron say? Boy, that guy really gets worked up. Artistic temperament, I suppose. The would-be patron does not say, I think he was deaf. He says that he was argumentative. He was even belligerent. I don't look forward to spending time with him. I want my meetings with him to be as short as possible. That was Beethoven's goal. Well, all of these composers are found in the great Vienna cemetery, which is a wonderful place to visit. It's one of the few cemeteries in the world that has a map where it shows all the famous people. And you can go to Mozart's grave and Beethoven's grave and Schubert's grave and on and on and on. The grave of Mozart's, Beethoven's student and composer Czerny. They're all there. What a wonderful place to visit. Most of the concerts in Vienna are within the central circle that we call the Ring. It's a beautiful city. In the center is a ring. And there are theaters there. While you're there, might as well go to the Hotel Sacher and have a piece of the famous Sacher torta, that chocolate cake that is world famous. I would do that. I do that. Don't tell my doctor. Outside the city itself, there are amazing suburban experiences. There's a little town in the hills called Grinsing, and you can go there and hear the so-called Schrammel music, Schrammel, which is more of a folk music with folksy instruments. A lot of fun to hear, and you can go for a walk. Don't get lost, don't get lost. I started thinking about one of the piano pieces I was playing when I was there. Whoa! When I got to the end, I had no idea where I was. So walk, but don't get lost. Then, after these glorious days, and I could also have talked about Brahms and Schubert, other wonderful world-class composers whose music you can hear. And eventually we can talk about the 20th century and Richard Strauss, Johann Strauss, Gustav Mahler, and Arnold Schoenberg. What a wealth of music. What an amazing thing. So if you go, you're going to have to just pick a few things and enjoy those. You can even hear something unusual and interesting, because I haven't talked about Haydn. One of the things Haydn wrote that people forget is that he wrote operas for marionettes for his patrons, the Esterházys. And you can go to a theater in Vienna and hear and see a marionette opera, which I don't think you'll hear or see anywhere else in the world. So it's a kind of a neat thing to do. What a place. Schoenberg and his students, Webern and Berg. Music that changed the world, music that changed art. And of course, the visual arts are just astounding, and they overlap with music, especially the 20th century painters. Schoenberg was a member of the painting group, the Blue Riders. And if you look at a few of the paintings and compare to some of the 20th century music, you're going to find similarities that go across the arts. And that's very interesting when you say, well, no, I can see similarities between these paintings and Schoenberg's music, or between the paintings of Paul Klee and Beethoven's music. Klee is Klee. What a wealth of things to see. The beautiful murals of Gustav Klimt and the 20th century musical artists. There are lots of similarities there, and you will enjoy all of it. Well, I'm going to sign off on Vienna before I just run out of time completely. Lucky you if you're going to Vienna. I don't know how many times I've been there, but I'm going back. Oh, I'm so glad we've had this talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy what's in the newsletter. If you do, please remember to like us. Please recommend us. Please subscribe. We have so much content, and it will do a lot for you. Mind is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to lose. So stay sharp, stay interested. Listen to new music. Have new experiences. Travel if you can. Enjoy it. Check out our content at Seniors Junction. There's a lot of it. Much of it is freely available. The things we charge for, we're quite reasonable in pricing. And we'd love to hear from you, and especially I'd like you to come back. I'd like to see you again. Thank you for listening. I'm Paul Merkley, retired professor of musicology, now the co-founder of Seniors Junction. Happy listening and happy traveling.